Hello, and welcome back to the Haunting of My Geekdom, Part 2. Denise and I, hello Denise, we're here to talk about my opinions on a deep dive down the rabbit hole of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, comparing it to its three descendants, The Haunting from 1963, the film, the 1990 film, The Haunting, and the 2018 Netflix miniseries, The Haunting of Hill House, in an attempt to discuss, in my opinion, what holds truest to the intent meant by Shirley Jackson in her original story. In part 1, I covered the actual story that each film is supposed to tell from the book. I discussed the characters, their differences between the versions, well, really their name differences. We talked about the ghost story and how each of those ghost stories not only differs, but represents something of that time period and how stories were told. Now we are going to discuss different aspects of the story. The doctor's goal, the importance and the representation of the characters of Nell and Theo, and to a sadly much lesser extent Luke, sorry buddy. And then we're going to go over a few different things as well, including the haunting elements that make their way through the different stories and the use or lack thereof of color. Now, getting back into it, when we look at the doctor's goal, it remains the same in 59 and 63. Dr. Montague and his film version, Dr. Markway, are anthropologists by trade as a cover for their interest in the supernatural. And they have a simple goal, and that is to conduct a thorough, true scientific experiment to find a real haunted house. They go through official channels and lists to find the names of people who have some sort of experience or documentation of the supernatural. Of the people who respond to the letters that he sends are Eleanor Vance and Theodora. Finally, we have Luke Sanderson, who is there as the heir to the home on behalf of his, I believe it's grandmother, to show and prove that he can do literally anything. It changes when we get to the 99 film. Liam Neeson's character, Dr. David Morrow, lies to the participants of his study. His study is on, the purpose of fear in today's society and how group settings affect it. So he states in the beginning of the film when we first meet him that fear had maybe, because those who are scared tend to stay alive a little longer. But it had a purpose. For early man, when you felt fear, you ran. You protected yourself. You protected others. It caused a reaction in your body that kept you alive longer. In today's society, as he says, fear holds no place during a job interview. You can't run from fear in the modern setting in which we experience it. He lies, and he is told that his study is unethical because he presents it as a sleep study. He invites these people into a mansion to separate them from their normal lives for a week to really look into why and how their psychology, because he breaks down their issues, we'll say, for lack of a better term, because I am not a doctor, unlike all of these doctors, and how that psychology and their issues affect their sleep patterns. In 2018, we have a couple of different doctors, but because in the 2018 version, the house is not classically haunted the way that we experience in the other three, the doctors that we meet, we have a fertility doctor that Stephen and his wife Lee go to. We have the sleep paralysis doctor, who isn't a doctor. He specifically says it, Arthur. He tells Nell that he's going to help her with her sleep paralysis. That is why he's there. They eventually fall in love and get married. And after his death, she is going to a therapist, Dr. Montague. So the doctors that we meet in 2018 have nothing to do with an actual study of the house. And in fact, in 2018, Dr. Montague is blamed by really all of Nell's siblings. She has 4 of them for being a terrible therapist. They blame him as the reason for Nell returning to Hill House and eventually taking her life there. So, why is this important? Why do these differences matter? When you look at 59 and 63, just being a few years apart, their purposes remain the same. The reasoning behind it is upon an additional rabbit hole, because this one sent me down not just the main rabbit hole, but a few side rabbit holes. We had to figure out how that whole burrow worked out. Shirley Jackson, from what I found, had read an article about different experiments inside houses where they were trying to figure out if ghosts were real, but none of the experiments she deemed legitimate. Like, it all seemed like BS to her. So she wanted to write a story that expressed that. And that is where we get the reasoning for the first two. Is she was explaining to herself why the experiments she read about failed or could not be deemed conclusive, like it wasn't real. And she was exploring what our mentality as people and what our mental health, how all of that affects the idea of a haunting. 99, like, that is very much of the time period as well, where a lot of people weren't trusting doctors, things were unethical, like it all seemed like lies, not hauntings. A haunting is much more likely than a doctor telling the truth. And in 2018, well, frankly, that just doesn't matter, because we are in a time period where it is about our mental health first, and we trust in therapy, we trust in psychologists. I am in no way questioning that. I do believe in therapy. I do believe it works when it works. It's just a representation of how things have changed over time and how we view these different things. Like, we've lived through the end of the world. War, recession, Trump as president. Like, fuck it, hauntings are fine. That's good. I just need a therapist to deal with everything else. That's where the trauma is. It's outside, not inside. The call is not coming from inside the house this time. It's coming from outside. Hey. So this leads very much into the main discussion of The Haunting of Hill House. And that is true hauntings versus the mental health aspect. Okay? In 99, that is the only one. So the one that I deem a favorite movie from my childhood is the only one that says with 100% clarity, hauntings are real and Nell is sane. This is how it does it, right? As I discussed in part 1, Nell's story in the 1999 version has her returning to what she doesn't know as her ancestral home. When she gets there, everybody experiences a lot of what she experiences. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And when they start questioning her sanity, when it feels like it's pushed too far, that's where the other stories end. That's specifically where 59 and 63 end. You have crossed the line. You need to go home. She has one more night and she finds the truth. She digs for the truth. Everybody is worried. Everyone is scared. But then, after Dr. Morrow saves her from the top of the spiral staircase in the conservatory, they all put her to bed. He's in the conservatory. He's talking into his notes, saying how much he regrets the experiment and how it should have ended before it began. Everyone was right to tell him he made a mistake, and that's when the house attacks him, tries to drown him in blood. There is a pond, a pool, it's full of blood, and he's able to escape, and he now believes everything is real. Theo wants to know what's wrong with him. They've left Luke to babysit Nell, but he drifts off outside of the door, and the ghost of Hugh Crane in the house, he has possessed the house, attacks her. They are able to break the door down. They see that her bed has come alive and like a hand trapped her, cut her, and they're able to break her free, and they try to race from the house and get outside. And they do, and it's nighttime, and the gate is locked because nobody will hear you at night. Nobody will come to help you. Luke gets into Nell's car, crashes it into the gate. The wires on top, the iron gating on top, breaks and almost kills him inside. They're able to get him out of the car, but Nell has disappeared. Theo, the doctor, and Luke were looking away, and Nell has raced back into that house because she needs to stand up to Hugh Crane. She needs to protect the children. The others follow her inside, and the house begins to attack them. Eventually, Luke says, and this is something consistent throughout every iteration, Luke says how hard it is to burn a house down. So the house grabs him and throws him into this huge open fire. The fire's not roaring, but the fireplace, it's 92 outside. I'm not thinking about fires right now. So the fireplace where Hugh Crane had burned children's bodies, and a huge lion-headed flume comes and beheads Luke. This is the first time that Luke dies. The only person who dies in 59 and 63 is Eleanor. In 99, Eleanor and Luke both die. In 18, Eleanor and Luke both die. So now Theo and Dr. Morrow are truly scared, and Eleanor tells them to hide. They're going to play hide and seek so that she can face Crane. The huge painting of Hugh Crane that's at the top of the stairwell falls, and it shreds Theo's shirt and cuts her. They're injured and they run, and Nell is left, and she stands up to Hugh, and she figures out a way to trap him in these large doors that are a representation of purgatory. And there's children at the base that are looking up to heaven, but they are trapped in purgatory. She's able to somehow, with the help of the spirits of the children, trap him in the door, and the children's spirits are released. but in the process, Nell dies. Her spirit is released, and the only people to leave the home are Dr. Marrow and Theo. This story, the 99 story, does not at all refer to, in the original book from 59, the possibility of Nell having experienced the act of a poltergeist or possibly being telekinetic herself. There is a story in the original book that after her father's death, it rained stones down upon her house for 3 days. And it was her and her sister, and eventually the two of them forget it, and their mother convinces them that what happened was the jealous neighbors were throwing stones at them. Shirley Jackson has a very specific view of the judgment of neighbors that is expressed very clearly in The Haunting of Hill House and in We Have Always Lived in the Castle. Like, the neighbors are the problem. The judgment of society is the problem. And I fully respect that. Her first novel, The Lottery, I have not read, but is now on my list. If I'm to understand it, that is a portion of the story. I think it is supposed to be more about a marriage and the imbalance of that marriage in the time period, as well as the judgment of society on people's marriages that they have nothing to do with. So again, that is just sort of what I've picked up. I have not read the book yet. It is shown in 2018. It is one of Mike Flanagan loves Easter eggs in his work. So you have Theo reading The Lottery, and you have Luke with his crayons inside of an ET box, which I think is just adorable. So 99, again, the only one that 100% says Nell was completely sane the entire time, and the issue is Hugh Crane haunting the house and torturing this children for years on end. 2018 is that mixture of the supernatural is real according to their mother. 3 out of 5 children have experienced the supernatural and call it what it is. Hugh Crane, the father, does not acknowledge the idea of a haunting. He doesn't. At one point, Olivia, their mother, tells Theo when she's explaining how the women in their family have special gifts and abilities. Theo asks, does Dad know what you experience? And Olivia says he knows a little bit. Then we get an image when we get Olivia's perspective and her episode, her dedicated episode, that she's explaining, oh gosh, I can't remember what event it was she was explaining. But she's clearly explaining supernatural phenomena to him, and he writes it off. When they hear scratching in the wall, he writes it off as rats. He does not accept it as the spirit scratching at the walls, clawing, trying to get out. We know Stephen does not accept it at all. In fact, in the first episode, when he is in a woman's house and he's staying the night, when we find out that he writes about the supernatural and he tells these stories and that's how he makes his money as a writer, he tells her, I've never seen a ghost. This is all BS. I just tell people stories in an exciting manner. Shirley, again, is a question mark. She doesn't want to believe. She has not seen any ghosts. She saw a really terrifying event of a bug crawling out of the dead kitten's mouth. Scary as hell. Do not like it. Have a bug thing. If you know me, you know exactly why. Not cool with it. It's not until she's an adult, till after Nell's death, that she starts to accept that the dreams that she has, that what she says in her sleep could be a little bit more. That as she's working on Nell's body in the mortuary, she sees a version of Nell's ghost. She sees her mother's ghost. She's still writing it off, and then on the night of the funeral, which is on Halloween, everybody has left. Stephen and their father are following Luke because Luke has stolen Shirley's credit. There's so many characters. And 2018 is the hardest because all the other characters are the same, and then there's new characters in 2018. And you gotta mix them together. Okay, so Luke has gone off to burn down Hill House because he blames it. He knows it's haunted. He blames it for killing Nell. Stephen and their dad have followed because Luke has stolen Theo's car and Shirley's wallet so that he can buy the fuel because he's an addict and has no money. Theo is banned from the house because in a moment of being drunk and depressed over the loss of her youngest sister and sibling, what she does when she's dealing with her issues, she uses sex, and she reaches out literally in the dark and tries to kiss Shirley's husband, Kevin, who pushes her away, but Shirley only sees the aftermath. When she opens that door, the lights have turned on, and she sees what is clearly the two of them parting away from a moment, and she doesn't give Theo or Kevin a chance to explain at all. Now, hold on, talking it out. The funeral was the day before Halloween? No, because then they're at the reception and that's where Luke steals everything. Okay, yeah, anyways. So, again, there's so much. I spent this whole weekend, Friday through Monday, and now talking about it on Tuesday. My head is nothing but the Haunting of Hill House. So, we have Shirley constantly denying this, and then she experiences knocking and pounding on the doors and on the windows, and she thinks it's trick-or-treaters, and she has to deal with it, and it's so tense. She goes outside to yell at them, but there's no one there, and instead she's yelling at Theo because Theo's come to talk to her again and finally explain, listen, this is what Dad and I saw in your home. We saw Nell's spirit crawling out of the grave. She's the one who destroyed the Forever home, because that's a whole nother thing, but basically it's a model of the home that their mother had wanted to build after they sold and flipped Hill House. So it's going back and forth just over and over. They show us the hauntings. We know the hauntings are real. But they show us the trauma because we learn eventually when they get to Hugh's story and his side of what happened. He never told the kids how he found their mother's body. Stephen was asleep the entire night, and all he saw was their mom in the house when she was supposed to be at their aunt's house. Stephen, he read, their dad never told them his side of the story, but Stephen eventually read the police report, where the police questioned him for hours. He was gone. He had got the kids out of the house, left them in a hotel room, and went back for Olivia. But he was gone for 3 hours before he ever called the police, and would not tell them why. All he would say is that he was grieving. He was covered in Olivia's blood because he was holding his wife's body, grieving her loss. Stephen writes everything off. He even gets a vasectomy because he is so scared of the idea of mental illness, what he saw his mother go through, how Theo, while being a therapist, while being a psychologist herself, specializing in children, and Theo deals with mental issues constantly, but she uses her supernatural ability to help these kids, and in the story gets a pedophile arrested. So Stephen sees what Theo deals with. Stephen sees that Shirley deals with death by looking at it as a job because of everything she's gone through from the loss of their mother, and not really accepting the supernatural side because she only ever dealt with the knocking as a kid. And what she saw the night everything ended and the night they left Hill House was her mother in a state, making tea, telling her to go to bed, and finding that bottle of strychnine. And she goes and wakes up her father, and her father tells her to get the kid to get out of the house. He goes and he finds them. It is Luke and Nell who physically see their mother kill somebody with the intent of killing them as well using strychnine. It's Hugh who, to stop her, pushes her against a wall and grabs the kids, and she's hurt herself, and he takes them and he runs, and he's seeing now spirits. His wife is talking just crazy, shall we say, and there is a dead child, the one no one believed in, the one that Luke, her name is Abigail, and Luke says, "This is my friend," and everyone says she's imaginary because nobody else sees her. And Mike Flanagan, we go into this show knowing it's a ghost story. So when everybody calls her Luke's invisible friend, we accept that she is not real until she is physically there wearing Luke's clothes instead of the blue dress we always see her in when we see her. And then we watch her die. So when Hugh goes back, he has to figure out who this little girl is. And the Dudleys show up because they heard something in the night. And they came in the night, even though no one can hear you. What they heard actually was what they didn't hear. They did not hear their daughter. They did not see Abigail in their little cottage. So they came to the house. And now they find her dead. They find Hugh at the bottom of the stairs crying and holding his bleeding wife because she has fallen down the stairs and died. And they know when he says that she killed someone, they know that it's Abigail, and they turn, and there is her spirit in her blue dress being cared for by another ghost, being led off. And now Hugh believes. Hugh knows everything his wife ever said is true. It's all there. But Stephen doesn't. Stephen spends the rest of his life, his father keeping all of this information from the kids because he helped the Dudleys bury Abigail's body because nobody else knew she even existed because they kept her homeschooled from all the terrifying things out in the world. They kept her, they buried her so that her spirit would remain at Hill House where they could always find her. And he agreed to keep the Dudleys on, to keep the house so that they could visit their daughter, who his wife took from them. He hides all of this, and Stephen is only left with the belief that it is all some form of mental illness. In 59 and 63, we've discussed that same thing, how Nell has lost it. But what we didn't discuss, what I put off, was Nell's story. Why they're so quick and easy to believe that Nell is just crazy, that she's not strong enough. Nell's story begins, as I said in part 1, when she is 21 years old and spends the next 11 years caring for her sick mother, living in her home, taking care of her, hearing the banging on the wall, hearing her mother call out for medicine and whatever else she could use. And Nell never sleeps. She's always on edge, and she constantly quotes different religious things that, again, I don't understand, because that is not part of my history or childhood. We did not come from a religious family. Her mother is so horrible that she states, of the people she hates in the whole world, it is her mother and her sister. And then after her death, it is just her sister with her brother-in-law and niece as a close runner-up. She lives in their house. She sleeps on a cot in the living room. She doesn't even have an actual room. She does not have a job. She has never been able to do anything or go anywhere until one day she gets a letter in the mail offering her a free vacation, room and board in a manor house in the country far, far away, and all she has to do in exchange is answer some questionnaires and take some notes. So she hops at the chance. She has a vehicle that she shares with her sister, and she can't even use it because her sister refuses to admit that Nell has any right to it. In her life, Nell has no rights. So when she has a moment, a second to do something for herself, she does it. And in her rush, in her flight from her home and her life, she accidentally knocks over a little old lady. And in the moment when first reading the book, you kind of wonder, why is this important? And what the little old lady says is that she's ruined it. She had a shopping bag, and there was some food in it and a slice of cheesecake, and the bag has torn and broke, and she lost almost everything. And Nell offers to pay for it. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to destroy your groceries, except they're not groceries. They were leftovers. It's all she could get her hands on. So she took what she could because she doesn't have anything for herself. And I see now that I finished the book, where that representation for Nell is. This is who Nell would be if she stayed with her sister and her brother-in-law. She would be this little old lady begging for scraps. Now, as Nell drives away, I had said in part 1 how we get this fairy tale imagery. She's driving by home. She sees a wall of oleanders. And if you've ever seen a wall of oleanders, it is really beautiful. Even knowing that they're poison, which she does, it's still gorgeous. And then she drives further along and she sees this house surrounded by beautiful roses, and there's 2 stone lions at the gate. And she dreams that one day she'll have a home like that she'll live there. And if she did, maybe everyone from the village would come to her, and she would read fortunes and have this great life where she didn't have to take care of anybody else. It was just her doing what she wanted. And maybe she would plant a wall of oleanders around it as well to protect herself. This is all fantastic imagery when you are putting it in regards to the life that she is running from. And then we see her stop for lunch, and you get a very famous quote, or a very famous moment, and that is the cup of stars. She's having lunch, there's a family, and there's a little girl refusing to drink milk. And the mom says sorry to the waitress because she'll only drink milk from her cup of stars. It is a cup that the little girl has at home, and there are stars at the bottom of it, so whenever she drinks, she sees the stars at the bottom of her cup. And Nell is thinking to herself, because we've spent all this time in her mind, to keep refusing, to never settle, because if you settle now, then you'll settle forever. And it is very easy to think that that's what Nell did. At some point in her life, her mother and sister told her, you're going to be this person. And she accepted it, and she stayed with it until this moment, until this letter from Dr. Montague. The next phase we see is on her way. The doctor had written directions and said, don't stop in the town of Hillsdale. Don't ask anything about the house. Everybody in the town sucks. But she does. She stops for coffee first before heading up to Hill House. And she sees that the town is pretty run down. There's some kids that look like hooligans, and the curb is, like, it's just a gross town. But she stops at the one restaurant, and she goes in for a cup of coffee, and there's this young woman, and there's a man. He drinks the coffee, and it's an overall weird interaction. They are very standoffish, and she's feeling judged by them. But in talking to the young woman pouring her the coffee, they have an interaction. And for whatever reason, Nell starts saying, this is such a lovely place. Probably not to, insult this girl's home. And she says, oh, I want to find a home here. What's it like? And the girl says, everybody leaves. And Nell says, that's what I'm doing. I left too. I'm trying to find a new home. Why don't you leave? And the girl says she feels like she's trapped. When Nell leaves, the young woman tells her, I hope you find your home. The little girl didn't say anything because that's weird. She just smiled at her. And the old lady said, I'll pray for you. This to me is a mother maiden crone moment, except for it's really like child, young woman crone. These are representations of Nell, who she was as a child in the moment she got trapped in a position she didn't want, who Nell was in her 20s, and that chance that she could have taken, but her mother got sick and she stayed to take care of her, followed by who she would be if she didn't run, if she didn't take the car and she didn't head to Hill House. All of this is what we spend time in Nell's head. Almost, I want to say, like 40 pages. It's probably less, but it felt like a long time, either from the writing or from the fact that I was reading it at work during downtime. We have, as I spoke before, a ton of imagery of fairy tale imagery, of wishes and dreams and hopes. And during this time, during this car ride, she actually puts a lot on Dr. Montague, saying, I wonder what he'll be like. And it's easy because in the 99 one, at least when I was a kid, I did see it as he kind of had a thing for her in the I want to save you sense. in the book, and actually they did it in the 63 film too, because in the 59, in the book, they indicate that instead she puts her hopes on Luke. Even though she doesn't really. It's Theo who says, I think that Luke is into you. And then there's the one conversation that Nell has with Luke on the steps, asking him about who he is or something that he wants or what his mom was like. And she thinks, does he think I'm coming on to him? Does he say this to all the women? Does he think I'm easy? And she kind of gets lost in it. He saves her on a moment. She's on the veranda alone, and she's leaning back because she's looking up at the tower from the outside, and she almost falls off the veranda, but Luke catches her, and the others tease them because at the beginning they have this really great, easy relationship. And in the 63, they switch it from Luke to Dr. Markway. He never mentions his wife in the beginning. Theo teases Nell about Dr. Markway being someone she might be attracted to. They have the scene on the veranda where he saves her from falling. He's the one who goes up the stairs and stops her from possibly hurting herself. They continue throughout in both 59 and 63, focusing on the incidents that occur to Nell. The chalk on the wall or painting on the wall, she wakes up with that hand grabbing her. Nobody else feels or sees that or hears the children's voices crying through the wall. In 99, they use that hand to pull her out of bed when the spirit of Hugh Crane tries to attack her in an earlier moment before the whole bed scene when everybody sees it. In 18, they give that hand scene to Theo, and they make it part of Theo's growth as a empath or ESP or whatever they are not saying. Nell has incident after incident. In fact, in the 59 book, Theo is the one who dances with Crane's statue. They change it in 63 to make Nell dance with the statue. And then on the night when she really loses it, when she hears the voices, and it is a beautiful performance. I was so engrossed in this moment of Julie Harris. I cannot even explain how focused on her I was and how taken in to her mind and this possession, because that's what it feels like, is she's being possessed. But it could easily be just her mind. Just this moment she no longer has, because she explains a little bit, but not fully, about having taken care of her mother and about how she never left. One could surmise that lifestyle for 11 years put her in a mindset of kind of the military, right? Where you had something you needed to do every single day. You had a responsibility. You had to take care of this person, wake up at a certain time, make breakfast, keep the house clean. That rigid lifestyle that some people cannot adapt to when they're out of the military. So now Nell is in this life where she's in a beautiful, depending on which story you're in, this mansion. She has all of this free time, nothing she has to do. She doesn't have, like, they talk about her hands, and she focuses on her hands, and she wants to do the dishes, but Mrs. Dudley does the dishes. Mrs. Dudley will not let anybody else do the dishes. Theo says even if you tried to do them, Mrs. Dudley is going to take it down, redo the entire thing, just like my papa with his dishwasher. Like, don't even bother. Just, he's gonna undo whatever you did is wrong. My cousin was the only one who got the stamp of approval, so I 100% get that. But the point being that now she doesn't have a rigid lifestyle to keep her focused. So now her mind is wandering, and she is getting so obsessed with how others view her. Now, most of us have been down this road. Like, we get it in our minds when we're in a new situation. No matter how confident a person might seem on the outside, maybe they have a moment of going, oh my God, did I just really say that? Are people judging me? Like, is my viewpoint that different? Do I sound crazy? Oh, should I have kept it all inside? And that's what Nell is going through, but it is increased. It's tenfold. And it's a trip, right? This is her mind. So even though, as I stated in part 1, others are experiencing some of what she's experiencing, we have no way of knowing if they are going through that in her brain, because she is our narrator. She is taking us through these experiences, and they're happening to her. She's overhearing Luke and Theo have a conversation that has nothing to do with her, but is it about her, and what are they saying, and do they hate me? We don't know. We only know what Nell knows. And a lot of what Nell shares with others is just plain lies. When she talks about her apartment, she just repeats back what Theo says. Theo said, I live in a big apartment. And Nell said, oh, I live in an apartment too. It's probably like yours, just, really little. And there's 2 stone dragons that are on, or 2 stone lions that are on the fireplace. And it takes me forever to choose something because it needs to be just right so that I'm comfortable in it. And there are multiple times where she just straight up lies. There's even a point in the book, and it feels like she's having a manic episode. I think a lot of, if you know anybody or have experienced any form of, and either bipolar, or I personally have PPMD, and one friend said to me, hey, in this moment you seem really manic, you're reminding me of people in my life. And so I've experienced kind of those ups and those downs with my own issues. But she lies about her age just because she can, and she's on this high where she's saying whatever she wants regardless of the results and who it might hurt. So is there real haunting in 59 and 63? I want to say yes. But the reason why they are pushing her out of the house at the end is because she is not unstable, but can be viewed that way. She is susceptible in a way to the house that they aren't. So she feels like she's being punished, she's being singled out, she's being replaced. There is so much to dig into that I'm sure if I looked, I can find more than one paper or book that does do that, and what all of these different things represent in psychological terms that we use now that we did not have then. Now let's take a moment to look at Theo and her representation as queer. This is, from what I have gathered, incredibly accepted since the very beginning. And even upon reading it, it was like reading Anne of Green Gables when I was a kid and going, I think Aunt Jo's gay. You can't fight me, Aunt Jo's a lesbian. I had a gay dad. I knew two things as a child. You were either straight, a gay man, or a lesbian. Or maybe that's 3. It's like 1 and then 2.1. So I know, yeah, I knew what being gay was. I knew what being a lesbian was. It wasn't until 1999, possibly 2000, because I didn't see The Haunting in theaters. I saw it at home on probably HBO. I was waiting so long for it and my mommy wouldn't take me and I was sad, but I did see it eventually. And Catherine Zeta-Jones explained to me what being bisexual was. There is a scene in the film where upon first meeting, and Nell and Theo are in Theo's room, which happens in not 2018, because again, 2018, timey-wimey. So in 59 and 63, when they become instant friends, Theo has an aura that you just can't ignore. It pulls you in and you want to be around her and you want to be friends with her. You want to be with her. She's introduced in the book as having a roommate. And then, as I stated before, Nell asks, are you married? And she simply responds, no. And that is in 59 and 63. But in 99, she starts to not fully undress, but she's a fashionista. She's an artist. She changes her clothes. So she takes off her top and she's wearing this gorgeous lacy thing beneath it that's like part bustier. Who knows what that sucker is? I've worked in fashion. I don't know the name of it. I just know it's gorgeous. And she's gorgeous. But Nell, like, the camera focuses on her boobs and it's clearly Nell focusing on her boobs and she turns away. So I felt as a kid that Nell was gay. And in that moment, as they're talking and Theo's like talking about her apartment and what her life is like, and Nell asks, because they're talking about their sleep issues and why they're there. And somehow Nell asks, do you have commitment issues? And Theo responds with, my boyfriend says I do, but my girlfriend says I don't. And she goes, I just wish we could all be together, except they hate each other. Catherine Zeta-Jones, that moment, taught me about bisexuals. Still didn't put it together. Years of my life watching this movie, still had to be told by someone else, hey, maybe you're bisexual. And she brought up thruples in 1999. That's where we were at. And I love that. In 1959, it is very widely believed that Shirley Jackson, the way she wrote that introduction for Theo, is saying Theo is a lesbian. This is how we say it without saying it. In 63, they point it out even harder. So there's a scene, because as I have mentioned, Theo and Nell, especially in 59 and 63, become very antagonistic to each other. Like, it is a very sisterly relationship, the way, that they are going back and forth at each other at different moments. They love each other, they hate each other, they love each other, they hate each other. And I think can be pointed out that each time Theo says, either between Luke or the doctor, hey, I think you're into this guy, you're making a fool of yourself, it's her being jealous because she might have a thing for Nell. But it could also be her ESP. She knows, while neither of them have said something or anything, that the doctor is married and that Luke is just somebody to sleep with, not to be with. But yeah, they get into a fight, Nell and Theo. They're out on the veranda And I can't remember the exact quote, but Nell basically is telling Theo she's unnatural. Now, this follows through with the other times that she's called Theo wicked, and that is coming from a religious stance. You are doing these things that you can gather from her past, her childhood, are against the rules. You're wicked because you painted your nails red. And now she's throwing it in her face that this different lifestyle she has is, unnatural. She calls her unnatural. So that is a clear indicator, semi-clear indicator, that in 59 and 63, Theo is being introduced to the horror world as queer. But she is also this incredible, amazing character that everybody loves, and she's queer, and that's great. And that is why so often the horror world has been a safe place for the queer community, because in the horror world, people are persecuted for being different, and yet a lot of the times they are either the savior or they're getting vengeance against those who deem them different. In 99, at no time does it seem to me as a viewer that Theo was into Nell. I still strongly believe that Nell has a thing for Theo, but because of her life, she cannot even really comprehend what that feeling is, why it makes her so uncomfortable for Theo to even so partially undress, like by our standards, even by the standards of 99. She took off a sweater and she had a spaghetti strap underneath. In 2018, it is without question that Theo is queer. There's a moment, like they do a flashback in their timey-wimey way to Nell's wedding, and Theo is Nell's maid of honor, and they're looking for her to do, somebody else is her maid of honor, but they're looking for the maid of honor to do the toast, and the groom Arthur is looking for his best man and somebody else, so they've totally disappeared. And as an audience member, you're going, that chick is having a three-way at her bestie's wedding. Crazy, but good for her. Steven and Nell go look. They knock on the door because they hear certain noises. Out comes the maid of honor. They tell her maybe go fix her makeup. Nell starts to leave. Steven stays, and she goes, what are you doing? He goes, I want to know who else is on the other side of that door. Out comes Theo. Lipstick destroyed. And they ask, they go, we didn't know. Like, they're trying to find the words, because it's just a moment of, I'm reassessing my knowledge of you. Not, I dislike you or I'm judging you. It's, here's something I didn't know, and I'm just reassessing. And she has a fantastic line of, that I was into Bridesmaids, and it's hilarious. In another episode, they flash back to that night, and Nell and Steven are watching Theo and the maid of honor dance, and they're watching Shirley, who's just staring at Theo with this look of confusion, and they're waiting for her. Like, it's such a great, beautiful sibling moment for this other shoe to drop, and then like watching her face change, and then she's telling her husband, like, holy shit, look at this, like, what does this mean? Explain it to me. I don't get it. Because Shirley is so good at separating everything, boxing it up, making things sit in a certain way. It's just great. And then later on, Hugh, it's in the future, so this is older Hugh. I can't remember who he's talking to. I think it's to Luke, because there is a woman who Theo is sort of seeing, like, this woman really wants to date Theo, but Theo only uses sex. She doesn't have relationships, because if she touches someone, she's going to feel everything that they feel, and she can't risk that. She can't risk going through more pain. And the dad says, Hugh says, yeah, no, me and your mom knew since she was 8. We didn't need to be told. And it's just beautiful. So consistently watching this build over years has been amazing, because it's even hard to tell, I think, personally, that in 63, when Nell throws it in Theo's face, it's in this moment of anger, not of judgment. I think that the Nell that we're introduced to doesn't care, but as she starts to come undone and her childhood teachings come through, it's the easiest thing to throw at someone. We all know in those moments during a fight, that thing that you grab and you toss in a person's face, rather, like, most of the time, it's not something you mean. It's just something you know will hurt them. And that sucks, but it's something we've all done at some point in our life. And it's just beautiful that, rather Shirley Jackson meant it or not, consistently since 1959, no one has changed the idea that Theo is queer. That is who she is. It is part of her as a character, and they are refusing to take it away, and that is just beautiful. Now I'm going to read 3 quotes from the first chapter of the book. And as it is widely believed, that first sentence not only sets the tone but captures your audience. There are certain things and words specifically from Mrs. Dudley and Mr. Dudley. They have speeches that are used over and over again in all 4 versions. The only one, 2018 is the only one that uses full quotes to bookend the story. Now, there are moments in 99 and moments in 63 that use some of the quotes, but what 2018 does is they do it since Stephen wrote The Haunting of Hill House. And in the final episode, when they use it again, it made me cry. It got me when I first read it. Before you get into the story, when you're reading that opening paragraph, it sounds a little like you don't really get it. When you finish the book and go back and read that first paragraph again, you go, oh, okay. This story is about the house being the villain, not the ghosts. No live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under conditions of absolute reality. This is saying to me that we need our emotions. We need our imagination. We need an escape because, and honestly, I shared this once with my mom when I was a teenager and going through issues with my knees, and the first few times I really thought about causing myself harm, that if I spent too long focusing on reality and focusing on all the bad things that are out there, I wouldn't make it. Now, I'm not ignoring them. It doesn't say ignore the bad things. It's saying that we need our imagination. We need that comfort. We need escapism. We need to be able to pick up a book, to turn on television, to think about things in a different way in order to process the horrors of reality. Because there are a lot of them. The average person, the average day, not even the average person, the average day is fine until you turn on the news, until you start thinking really about that world we live in. And for some of us, you can get sucked in so deep that there is no way out, there is no future, and you need the escapism to really protect yourself, to be your wall of oleanders. Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against its hills, holding darkness within. This is establishing that the house is the problem. And when you get into the ghost stories, it is still stating or I should say, 59, 63, and 18, that it's the house, not Hugh Crane, even though he built it specifically to fuck with people's heads. It's not his ghost there. It is not the ghost of any of his wives, considering one of them didn't even die in the country. It's not his daughter's ghosts, even though in 59, 63, and 99, they all find a book that it demonstrates specifically how crazy Hugh Crane could have been in real life, because he cuts up other books, cuts out pictures of paintings, and he makes a scrapbook that is religiously bound in saying that his child has to obey her makers, and that is him and his wife. And like, it's, here's what hell is like. Here are the sins. They focus on lust and gluttony and all the terrible things that will happen to you if you fall into these traps. So you can surmise, and that's what Shirley Jackson does, is like, she does this great job of, this guy could have been nuts, but there's no physical evidence that we're given to say he killed anybody. And that for a house that stood for 80 years and could stand for 80 more, people will die in it. It's just how life goes. So this line is setting up that the house is the problem, not the people. Versus 99, which ignores that statement. The house came from the mind of Hugh Crane, and Hugh Crane's spirit haunts the house. He is the house. He is the problem. He killed these children. He killed these women, and now they are all stuck here for eternity. Silence lay steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there walked alone. I think this is another moment about mental health, in the sense that this house is so large, it is so slightly off, that you are made to feel isolated. It's buried and surrounded by these hills and trees, so you feel alone when you're there. With Nell specifically, when we look at 2018, she's given a twin. Luke is her twin brother. But drugs have taken him away from her. So they do a moment where he says, because he's, a minute older than her or whatever, how he's her big brother and he'll always be there. They'll always have each other, and, they even title an episode a twin thing. But when the drugs take him away, and she's lost her husband as well as their mother, and they're all so disconnected, and it's established very well that Nell is the one who tries to hold the family together. She's the only one who talks to their dad. She calls in the first episode before her death. She calls Stephen first, then she calls Shirley, and she's reaching out to them because she needs help, because she's worried about Luke. She had a dream and a nightmare about Luke, and the broken-necked lady is back terrorizing her, and something is wrong, but no one answers. She walks alone. Her therapist, Dr. Montague, had suggested, have you ever gone back to the house, which we learn when we get to her episode. And she does. She goes to that house because she's seen her mother. She's worried about Luke. And that's where the answers are. That's where everything has happened. I think that is beautiful. It is sad, but Mike Flanagan has done such a beautiful job of that. And when you get to the end of 59 and 63, you see with Nell's death, when she's begging to stay, she begs Luke in 63 to stay at Hill House because he's the heir. I apologize. That was 59. In the book, she begs Luke. In 63, in the movie, she begs Theo to go back with her to her apartment because it's indicated throughout 59 and 63 that there are moments where she's just straight up reading Nell's mind, so she knows that Nell doesn't have a little apartment. She knows different things like that. And even in 99, even though she's right, she is walking alone because she knows she's right. She has the evidence around her neck that she is correct about what is going on in that house, and the fact that everybody else is worried for her, to a point where Theo's character begs Nell to come stay with her for safety because she doesn't have a home to go back to. That is done incredibly well across all versions. They take one line and one character and they sell it. Now, the last few things that we're going to talk about, the haunting elements and the use of color. This isn't going to be quite as in-depth because I've been talking for a very long time, but the things that go across, we have with the haunting elements, the knocking on the wall. This is coming both from the death of Nell's mother and from the death of the oldest daughter, or the old woman, depending on which version you look at, who dies of pneumonia in the house, banging on the wall, asking for help. We have imagery of the ghost dogs that make it into 63 and 18, but not into 99, even though you could probably argue that the statuary in 99, there's just so much you could make an argument for that. But 2018, all of the kids hear dogs howling at night. And it's the reason why Shirley is worried when she finds the kittens and wants to bring them in. But Mr. Dudley explains there are no dogs at the property. There are no wild dogs. There should be no howling. The welcome home, Eleanor. Now, the big one is the nursery door. This gets changed when we hit 18 because the ghost story changes, right? There's no child who died. So 59, it's the nursery door, and 63, it's the nursery door because the oldest daughter, or Abigail in 63, grew up in the house, died in the house, and never moved out of the nursery. There's a cold spot directly outside the door, and because of the creepy statues in it and the feeling of dismay and heartbreak, they keep that room locked and refer to it as the most haunted room in the house for Grace or Mrs. Dr. What are the Mrs. Montague or Mrs. anyways, for the wives of the doctor to stay in. She chooses that room specifically for being most haunted, and they are able to unlock it. In 99, Theo and Nell explore the house on their own. It's a very gay, happy time running through the halls. There's an amazing carousel room. There's this hallway where books are stepping stones to get across. I absolutely love it. It's amazing. But there is one door that they just cannot open, and they know it's the nursery. From the story about how the Cranes could never have children, but they had a nursery. Now, 2018 is where things get interesting, because this locked door is at the top of the spiral staircase. The spiral staircase makes its way across all of the stories. In 99, it's this really cool double spiral staircase, but it's in the conservatory, where in 59, 63, and 18, it is the spiral staircase in the library. We're also going to start the conversation about the use of color here. It's not terribly dramatic or important to the story. It's just interesting how they've changed it over time. And I wonder is it just about imagery? Or is it about the representation of colors? So, for instance, in 59, it is a huge thing that Nell is in the blue room, Theo is in the green room next door, and then Dr. Montague is in the yellow room, and Luke is in a pink room. I think, in a fun way, is Mrs. Dudley / Shirley Jackson kind of punishing the men, putting them in these lighter rooms, Luke specifically being described as the cad that he is. It's a funny joke to them to put them in this really feminine room. When you get to 63, it's a black and white film, so they don't describe or mention the colors of their bedrooms, but the doctor in that one, Dr. Markway, when they go into the parlor, it's referred to as the purple parlor. 99, they don't talk about the colors of the rooms at all. But if you notice, because the rooms that they do go in, since they play a part in the haunting portion of the story, you'll notice that Theo's room is brown, but Nell's room is red. And this is the second, because like I said, I feel like it's a joke in 59 where they put them in. But I think that when you get to 99, having Nell's room be red is going to be about the danger that she's in. She's put into a blood red room. Every inch of that place is red. She finds it comforting and beautiful, but the viewer, this is something that is warning. This is why we have red stop signs. You come to 2018, the color of the rooms isn't important, but you at least notice, at least for Nell and Luke, because they share a room, that their room is blue. I didn't notice for Shirley or Steven because they don't spend a lot of time in their rooms versus Nell and Luke. But we find red again, and it is that locked door at the top of the spiral staircase. The spiral staircase is in and of itself a danger and a threat, because we know that is where people hang themselves. We know that when Nell loses it, is in that fugue state at the end, she goes up the spiral staircase and they're worried about her hurting herself. In 2018, This is that moment. There's a time I want to say at the beginning, but again, timey-wimey, it's hard to tell where it is in reality. But it is Hugh, Olivia, Luke, and Nell in the library. They're working in there. The kids are helping. And Olivia says, hey, I know we can't get the door at the top of the stairs to open, but we've got to do something about these ropes because this is a danger. I don't want the kids trying to play on these and causing themselves harm. That red door that remains locked is the heart of this haunting. That is what they say throughout everything. It is consistently the heart of the house. In 2018, it is a question mark. They don't believe that it's where the hauntings are coming from. They just know that they can't get in no matter what. Even when Mr. Dudley gives them the master key, there's a point where Hugh tries to bust the door down. They can't get it open. This red door is a mystery, and it is a danger. Or we learn that it is a danger. Because when we get to the end of the story, when we see Olivia's story, she is talking to the ghost of Poppy. They have established that she sees and knows that this house is full of spirits. Now we are seeing it from her side. Except for the only spirit talking to her is the one Mrs. Dudley has established was clinically insane. We learn that throughout the story, everybody has had a favorite room. Olivia has a reading room. Stephen has a game room. Theo has a dance studio. Luke has a... What does Luke have? Luke has a treehouse. Actually, I can't remember if they had established one for Shirley and Nell. But this room, when Poppy is talking to Olivia, and Olivia is in her reading room, Poppy says, "Oh, I love what you did with this place. It used to be my dressing room." Cue your hint as to why Stephen found a vanity in his game room. Then it became a nursery. Cue your hint. Oh, that's where Nell found the teacups, is in a nursery. Behind this red locked door, Stephen is convinced that the water causing the mold in the house, has got to be from behind that door. When he is woken by Shirley, because Olivia has taken Luke, Nell, and their new friend Abigail somewhere to have a tea party, where Nell has her cup of stars that she is going to drink from. He finds the only place they are is at the top of that spiral staircase in that locked room. It opened of its own accord, and now there is an innocent dead child. Olivia is gone mentally, and he has to save Nell and Luke from them. He gets his children out of the home, and upon returning to it, that door is locked again, and his wife is dead at the bottom of the stairs. It opens only to reveal to the Dudleys their child's body, and to let them remove Abigail from that room. When Luke returns after Nell's death, because Nell has hung herself from the top of that staircase, because she walked alone, and there was no one to stop her. He threatens to burn the house down, and the house stops him, and his mother and Nell invite him, and we find him when Stephen and Hugh arrive with a needle in his arm. He has injected the strychnine into his system, into his blood, and he is dying. And Stephen is knocked out, but Nell's spirit is there, and she wakes him. And when he wakes, somehow Theo and Shirley are in that room too, and Nell's spirit enters their nightmares, enters their dreams, and wakes them and saves them. So as a group, they can save Luke. Hugh is on the outside of the door. He is an older man now. He's collapsed from his heart condition. He sees the spirits. He knows what's in there. He knows enough to stop Stephen from looking the bowler hat ghost in the eyes, the thing that has haunted and followed Luke his entire life. That room, that red door, that thing that tells us as a society to stop and turn back, has opened. But the story they're telling says it's not so much a bad thing. This house is the issue. The spirits within it, as indicated by Nell saving each of her siblings, aren't the problem. Abigail is there. Poppy was a problem. Poppy got into Olivia's head. Poppy showed Olivia the future. She showed Nell hanging from atop the stairs, a broken neck lady, dead. She showed Olivia Luke on the floor with that needle in his arm because of the dangers of the outside world. And it pushed Olivia, who may or may not have already been sensitive for whatever reason, to the edge, to try and protect her children, to killing. One spirit did that. Not the house, but a spirit who was already established as being insane before their death. The Dudleys begged to leave Abigail there. Abigail didn't do anything. We're tricked into believing that she was a ghost the whole time. Brilliantly done. Just spectacular. When Mrs. Dudley dies, Mr. Dudley does everything he can to get her body from their cottage, I assume is 9 miles away, to Hill House, so that when she passes, her spirit will stay there with Abigail, and she appears holding their other child who they lost. And as we exit the home, all the spirits arrive, and you see them, and the house remains standing, and you see that Olivia has Nell with her. And it is beautifully done. So at the end of this, we come again to the question. From the 59 book, from what I think Shirley Jackson is trying to say, trying to discuss in the issues of mental health and the fraudulent way of how at the time people could be using supernatural entities, this doctor who wants to have a real experience, who wants it to be scientific, and the things they're willing to put people through to get what they want. Shirley Jackson wants you to think about and truly explore, what is mental health? What does this all mean? I think that 2018 is the winner. I think it is the one that does the best job of holding true, questioning your mental health and taking care of yourself, as well as giving here's the logical reason for things and why with the mold all of this could have happened. I believe they say it's a 130-year-old house at that time. Any number of things can happen in it. I believe you can hate on 99 as much as you want. 63 is a fantastic psychological thriller. It is so good. Watch it. Love it. I cannot shut up about it as much. I can see where if you saw that first and then you saw 99, you would be beyond judgmental about it. But I don't think 99 deserves the hate that it gets. It is a movie of its time period. But 2018 is, in my opinion, the winner. Even though 63 goes near beat by beat of the book, the spirit is most alive. Shirley Jackson's storytelling in 18. Mike Flanagan clearly loves horror. I had watched The Haunting of Bly Manor. I knew that already. But The Haunting of Hill House, his rendition, the way it's filmed, using the timey-wimey storytelling, the cast, the acting, all of it, this man loves that story. It is in his blood. He has spent time. He has spent possible years thinking about what it all means. And he wants us to question it as much as he did, as much as Shirley Jackson did. To think about our health, about the health of our friends and loved ones before we make judgments. Either way, this has been The Haunting of My Geekdom, and I thank you all for visiting.